Okay, let's see if that has it fixed. I think it might have been trying to use the webcam. Ah, there we go. Yeah, I got a new, hoisted by my own attempted improvement. I wanted to try and get the face tracking a bit better, so I got a fancy new webcam for Christmas, only for it to try and use that thing's mic, which I don't think is actually a properly functional mic. Anyway, that aside, good evening everyone, only about 10 minutes late. That's honestly good for me. Fear and Hunger it is then. Yeah, got that. I think we're good to go. So, as it gives a few moments for Vegas to actually start responding, we have a lot to get through today, as this is what we're looking like for Project File today. It's certainly on the heftier side. We might as well start at the very beginning, which is all the way back here, with a very simple, just live shots. As it turns out, as the Termina review, once the actual update for Termina comes out, I'm not reviewing it till the game's done. Yeah, what's there is pretty good, and I might cover it, but I'm not covering it before the fishing update's out. It's going to revolutionise the game. Fear and Hunger 1, on the other hand, is not getting any more updates. So to start off with, we have just the shot of the coin spinning. However, as you can see if it's slowed down, and if I make this a bit bigger, the coin that's spinning is not actually one of the Fear and Hunger coins, because the Fear and Hunger coins are all ones I 3D printed, and thus don't spin very well. So this is actually just a random, cheap, giant metal coin that I had for some reason, spray-painted gold. But nonetheless, does the job. Evening June. Then just grabbing the coins, which are the actual Fear and Hunger coins, and a sword, which is in fact a sword I actually made. The blade I got from a Ren fair years ago, and then the guard is made out of a random piece of like scrap iron I found in an Asda car park. Immersion ruined? What do you mean? This isn't my hand, it's the hand of the player. That's Gahara's hand. You can see my hands later in this, and they're clearly betalent. This was a fairly simple shot. This is just a standard pan with a looping GIF placed on top of it. However, I did manage to get the tracking pretty perfect on it, so you wouldn't even know that they weren't in the same scene to begin with. These are all just standard match cuts, although I did originally record this without any of the footsteps, so I had to manually put all of those back in. What you can see down here. Then we get to the ritual circle, which was in fact made out of sugar. About half a kilo of sugar that took, which then has, although you can't see it tremendously well, my breastplate and shoulder guards and the bird-headed sword, and then we have the symbol of Sylvan from the first game and the symbol of the God of the Depths scrawled down. Sylvan's symbol actually changes quite a lot between the games. And then, I don't know if it's that noticeable, but these are actually two separate clips, because I had to take a lot of shots to get this right. and my phone's high dynamic range is not great, so the colour does just kind of shift about, despite it being mounted on a tripod, so that I could keep it kind of consistent. And then we just have some three-dimensional audio just using pans, and then when we go back, the armour and the sword is gone, and there's just a few feathers left. And then we swoop away, and then we have the sprite. Let me grab the sprite. That will be in... We want image assets. There was quite a lot of them for this one. I think it's right at the bottom. Yeah, that's right. So, in fact, we want the paint document versions of this. These were made on top of a base of good old Darce there, or Darcy, however it's correct, however I'm mispronouncing it this time, and then just coloured in. So these are actual sprites. However, they are not actually in the game. They are in fact just oh yeah, Ted out of Vegas, give it a moment. They are in fact just placed on top of the layer, and then just clipped so that we have Kahara sitting on top of them. So this is actually the same clip twice. This just then has a dynamic clipping mask that's been placed upon it. So essentially cutting it out, and then as it moves, the clipping mask changes so that it remains on top. But all in all, actually not too difficult a bit. And then we just have the final thing and the start. For those curious, the font is called Isar. It's that, if you're ever interested in doing your own Fear and Hunger stuff, that is the font that is used across all of it. Then we get into the pain in the ass bits of, let me move this out of the way, this old giant stack here that is the recreation of the full UI. So we have the background. Then we have the layer of the Valk art, very kindly done by Erasmus. Then we have Kahara, and then we have the first layer of UI. You then have each of the separate parts of the UI. So here we have the side box come in, which then also has to have a texture above it that fades in and out. Then we have the panel for text, and then the text itself. Then we get even more layers once we have the... It's a little bit... Needs to be a little bit further down. We have the top panel, the text for the top panel. And then also the selection highlights that go over the specific section. So all in all, takes quite a few layers to fit everything in. But once it's all been created, it's actually not too bad, because nothing really moves that much. The only thing that really moves is these panels here that slide across, and then this panel that fades down. Then you have the effects themselves, which are all on a single sheet, which there's probably a better way of doing animation than this, but I decided the simplest way is simply to just change where the clipping mask is each time. And thus it ends up with the animation. And then the text is just fairly simply animated in itself. That one, sorry. so that to make the sort of jump up, what we do is move the entire scene down and up, so it makes it look like it's jumping. And then on the mask side, we have it clip down, thus making the text sort of slide up. Then it's just a matter of looping that again and in reverse and finding the correct hit frames for Kara taking impact. It took a bit of time to sort of get it working the first time, but once it's working, I can honestly copy and paste it a lot for all the later parts. Then we move on to just the stack of stuff. What would be some advice you'd give in the art of making beautiful games for use like this? I've been thinking about doing YouTube as a hobby. You can send me regular vids. The best advice I can give is to just start doing it. Like, you get better from practice more than anything. Essentially, find a style that you like. Find people that you like the sort of video style of and you want to sort of emulate and make something similar to, and sort of try and recreate some of their stuff, and then you'll learn in doing that sort of what actually goes into that. And as you make videos, you'll start to develop your own style. Like, the first real review I ever did was an awful awful just rip off of Seth. But hey, we live and learn. Writing Scarab script like that. No, luckily I did manage to avoid having to actually touch any of the game's code. I considered it. I also considered re-injecting files for the sake of censoring, which I'll get onto in a bit. But no, everything is done in the video editor. It's not actually done in game. Guess I'll start making the script. Yeah, honestly, the best way to start is just to do it. And the whole creative process is fun. And eventually, you might have something that takes off. Who knows? Like, I've had more subscribers in the last month off the back of this video than I had in, like, the first 3 years of making stuff for YouTube. So it's... YouTube's one part quality, one part quantity, and one part luck. So it's just a matter of putting out enough videos till eventually something catches, and as you get better, chance those videos catch gets more likely. Content starved. Yeah, there's a lot of videos on it at the moment. And we have Fredo inflation, which is a well-known phenomenon that's used as a way of tracking how badly the economy is doing in the UK. As you can see, we're doing pretty badly because we're expected to hit 36p, which is just utterly unacceptable. We're going to move over Corona-chan with her bat soup, and then past Metal Gear Rising because nothing actually of relevance is going on there. There we go. We have the first actual IRL scene of showing. So yeah, this is the... You can see all my wings and claws, and you can even see a bit of the breastplate. What did cause problems, and you may or may not... Yeah, you can notice it just there, is the wings... My wings kept knocking the sugar circle and... disrupting it, so there was a lot of time. I had like nearly an hour of IRL footage for this bit, and that required fixing the circle so many times. So at different parts you can see it change shape slightly, and this bit over here you can even see right by my talons sitting on the hilt of the claymore. I didn't find you because of luck, I found you because of degrees of nudity. Yeah, that's the other video which drove a lot of my initial growth. I do owe Vrelnir a big debt of thanks for putting my review of that on the actual games update page. Happy New Year to you too, Dr. Vast. Do I have a Discord? Yes, I do. It's linked in the description of my videos. Yeah, no, the grains did not like staying in place. Moving on, we don't have much. I had to grab a lot of scenes from out of timeline, so this is from far later and actually in the spoiler section. But they're out of context enough that no one's really going to notice. Like the fact that Lagarde's here already. You have the plague. Get well soon. Luckily we have penicillin, so the Black Plague's not too much of a threat these days. Can you summon the sugar tooth fairy with a sugar circle? I think she'd come beat your ass if it was a circle of sugar. Surely she wants teeth in good condition. Ah, now we get to the guards. And also Henry VIII. And a quite interesting ancient map of the UK I found. And yeah, we have the guards. So, yes. Speaking of, this pennard, oh, that's what they're called, pendant? There is a correct word from begins with P, I don't remember what it is, but the flag that's on this is actually the flag of Hull. So, as we can see, all the guards are proud residents of the Bermuda Triangle of Awful that is Hull, Grimsby and Scunthorpe up on the Humber River. Yes, I did have quite a few people in the comments successfully recognise a certain Flash video game that it is, known as Legends of Crystal, which used to make the rounds a lot. Incidentally, finding a screen I could record from it which didn't just have lizard cock out was surprisingly difficult. That game mostly has a lot of lizard cock out. And then the of course, here it's standing in for Finland, so of course they've got the 1911 on the desk and the AR in the back. And then we have Vinland itself, with some Sergals and the most sparkle dog of sparkle dogs that I could find. Which they're a species that has kind of fallen by the way as time's gone along, but if anything, I miss the age of the sparkle dog. It was a better age. And then we have the Sergal that comes to eat the camera at the end. Rancid, yeah. Looks seen. Yeah, it was very related to seen. And then we have all the censored Vor that goes past Ragnarvalder as he slowly withers away from the pain of it. 2008. Yeah, a better year. This bit the editor does not like at all.
All who have their own reasons for making the foolhardy journey into the dungeon.
It would, when I was playing this back, it would crash on this bit constantly. But yeah, these are all just cropped parts of 4 separate recordings. And then the individual symbol to represent each reasons of love, insight, berserker, and a baby. Would have been bad if you had to Google it. Luckily, I know a specific website where you can get quite a lot of that very easily, that definitely doesn't appear later in the video. And then we have the first mention of Lagarde, and I don't think anyone pointed it out, but this clip here showing the basement is the panning shot from the Berserk Golden Age movie, where not the guy that Lagarde is based off, that being Griffith from Berserk, is held. What's your editing software? It is Sony Vegas 17. Yeah, and then the just fuck my shit up Kahara. Yeah. Enki could only be known as the greatest of the egoists, Max Stringer. Most of this is nothing. Didn't actually recognize TV. Griffiths did lots wrong, but damn, he was treated badly before that. Oh yeah, he had it rough. Probably had it some of the worst of anyone in Berserk. Oh yeah. We're gonna ignore this bit here because, as I realised in post, I forgot to censor it. So the Tall Knight just has his cock out in that. There's a couple bits I forgot to censor. That's one of them. There's another bit later. Then, yeah, no real edits until we get to sort of here, where I did have to massively reduce the dog's audio. It's still incredibly loud, and it's at minus 10 decibels. And then, yeah. Oh yeah, the game did just soft lock for me here. It wouldn't let Dark leave the wall. And now we get on to the zoomer appeal of 3x4 is a pain in the ass to edit around, but lucky we could just stick that in. However, what you may not have seen is... Oh, was that only in the later version? Ah, yeah, though. In the actual video, it's not in this editing, as for reasons of ease, I do final audio where I add all the music in a separate Vegas file, but I also do a few final changes. So I actually added some text down here to just sort of see if anyone would notice it, or if they'd all be just watching the Subway Surfers. Then we have the dogs, nothing too complex there. And then we get into the first repeated scene of showing off the combat, which again is fairly simple. I just found a green screen of the coin flip, so that's a simple chroma key remove, and then you can just have the coin flip easily. Nothing too much to talk about with the dogs, because these are all just standard clips with the occasional pan in. Every sprite is separate. Yeah, it has to be. Because they've all got to fit on their separate levels, apply and move differently. As now we are getting into where everything needs censoring again. So the censor is actually a separate PNG, which is just pasted on top. Because the guards are always in the same position, I can just drag and drop the same censor in. And so it's always going to be in the right place. However, it is in a different place for each of the guards, as they all have their stinger, as the game likes to call it, out in a different place. And had to sneak the Family Guy death pose in there somewhere. Moving on. What you may have spotted here is that the scene actually changes. Because for some reason, when trying to get footage, I could not lose the coin flip here. I just kept winning it. And even when I lost it, because of how many dogs there are, I couldn't get footage of the biting the neck off, as another wolf would just come initiate combat again. So I had to use footage from up here in the secret garden. Yeah, for what you may have noticed as well is that this is not 3x4, because I just got a image of the area and then just blurred that a bit and adjusted the brightness and contrast until it roughly matches, which just fills in for the eyes so there's not black bars on the side. Doesn't matter for sections like this, because it's of the darkness, you can't see that there's black bars there because it all matches. But for anything where it's bright, such as like for when we're fighting the dogs, I had to put in just a big white square so that there's not the very obvious black bars at the edge. Yeah, for when the stinger has been cut, I did actually make a separate sensor that's the torn pennant as well. Fear and Hunger. Yeah. I did have a few people asking what this is from. It's from a game called Carrion. It's pretty fun. Not that long, but it's enjoyable. And then we don't actually have much to talk about till we start getting into the later stages. We have another one of these, which, as you've probably noticed at this point, is just a lot of the same copy and pasted. However, I did go to the effort to make sure the mind and body are always decreasing throughout the video. So, as you probably saw at the start, it's at 199. However, now we're over to... where are we? Oh, I've gone too far. Now we're here. The body is now at 91 due to getting the backhanded, and the mind has been slowly decreasing. There's a category for reaching the guard's defeat scene as Kahara Renki. Is there now? I knew people did similar speedruns for Degrees of Ludity back in the day. Okay, here we have just talking about food, which is just fairly simple, adding images. I did it the lazy way by just making each of them just a different image, and then you just cut out some of the image. And then in the background, let's move you over just a tad. We have the logos of all of the gods. Despite the fact that these gods can't really exist at the same time yet, and this one arguably doesn't even exist and no one really knows about yet until the second game. With alchemy, I did originally want to have it match up to exactly what I was saying, so
Or dive into alchemy to make potions that heal more, destroy obstacles, or negate poison.
But getting the right crafting ingredients to get footage to match those up perfectly was just too much of a pain, so I decided just not to bother. Question in regards to Degrees of Ludity, what do you think about the new pregnancy mechanic? Really like it. Seems like a good base. I've not really done much with it because it's absolutely not my thing. The people who on the server I've seen do seem to like it, so it seems they've put a lot of effort into actually making it work correctly. But yeah, it's not my thing. Started building the dungeon in Fear and Hunger and Sims 4. Good luck with it. I mean, that's probably one of the only other games where the gods are as cruel as they are in this. Yeah. Yeah, we have Kahara being put in the penitent armor. Congratulations on your father/motherhood, Blackfire. We have just the law books. Nothing to really talk about there. Ah, yes. We have the next. This was a pain in the ass. Because for some reason, Vegas has really weird issues when it comes to text placement. So what you can animate text, so it just adds a new letter in each thing as it goes along. But for some reason, Vegas just doesn't do it properly due to the way that it anchors. So if you go through like frame by frame like this, it would work correctly. But if you render it out, it like jumps forward and backwards and moves around a bunch. So what I had to do was make an individual image for each and every letter. And then just put them in one frame at a time, so it types it out properly. Where'd you get the lucky coin from, SDL file? I made it. I made it myself. It's also linked in the bottom of the description of the Fear and Hunger video itself, which links to my Thingiverse But no, I made it myself. And it's a fairly simple 3D model, so it's about what's in my limit. But no, I made it myself and then 3D printed it myself. I'll take 10. You can make as many as you want. I've got like 3 of them. The one thing that I do recommend, I've got one here, but my webcam is using for VTubing, so I can't actually show it. But in fact, actually, I could probably show it on here. Don't know how well you can see it. But to get better quality on these, you want to be printing them with the print lines going horizontally like this. It will take a lot longer than printing as if they were flat down like this, but the result you get just won't be as good. But yeah, here we have just the set of old chemical mass balances that I happen to have, and we just drop an extra coin to tilt fate in your favour. Yeah. Kept knocking the camera over when trying to do this scene. Took quite a few attempts. Then moving on, we have the maths of how stuff works. I'm sure you remember your secondary school probability very well. Yeah. Probabilities are additive across. Multiplicative across, additive down. Sorry. Looks like I need to go back. And then we have the introduction to combat. Okay, Vegas, do you want to not crash? My character's miserable enough trying to stay afloat, and safe bringing more incidents to the world would be cruel. Yeah, that's probably the case. And we have good old Postal 2. What a game. Yeah, nothing of note there. Until we get to this. So this, again, is similar to the first thing with the Valk sprites. So we have two layers. Oh, did I? Ah, yes, I did. So what I've done here is this one. If I put that to transparent, you can see what the sprite was. However, in order to do the panning in and moving, that's far easier to do if you actually have a rendered clip. So I just grabbed this area, rendered it out, and then plop that clip in to do effects on that instead. Yeah, and then we got, if you see very carefully, Valk actually disappears and then reappears because I'm between frames. Anyway, then we get on to one of my favourite sections of the entire video, that being the Monty Python section, which was actually a lot easier than I thought. The hardest part was finding a good rip of Monty Python to actually make this from, as most of the ones around are all like horrible DVD or VHS quality ones, or in weird aspect ratios. Because it's rendered in a weird aspect ratio to begin with. It's not 1080. So I had to do a bit of reorganization. Best part, yeah, it was my favourite as well. Besides, well, maybe one other part. So for this, it was actually fairly simple. I just cropped 3 different frames for both Arthur and Patsy out from footage, and then just placed those into the scene. And then that does a very similar animation to the way that they animate normally. Background is just something I found on Google Images, and then it's just building the UI same way you would normally To actually get the names, I just went into the game, named a character that, took a screenshot, and then extracted that to put into this. I was waiting for someone to use this as a way of explaining dismemberment. You were the only one so far. Yeah, it just makes sense. You're a knight that chops off a bunch of something's limbs. It's exactly not Monty Python. These are then fairly simple. This is just footage from it, just with adding in the correct sound effects, which you'll not be able to see here because I did that in the editing render, so that won't actually show in this project file. And then just adding on the numbers in a similar way to it was shown earlier, so they just move up and down and they're keyframed. And then on the mask side, that just slides up and down to make it appear out of the slide in like that. Patsy's then gone, which was partially for the sake of just making the animation easier on my side. I'm gonna be honest, but it does help that he's not actually involved in the fight. Yeah, these are just fairly simple. Vegas had it was fairly easy to just add the correct font into Windows, and then Vegas is able to use any fonts that are within Windows, so I can just use the correct font for Fear and Hunger just up at the top, and that's just placed upon a semi-transparent layer. And then for the actual attacking, I just got a couple more frames. Luckily, there were some that matched very nicely. So you basically have a full set of attack frames for him. Then we have the other arm lost. Vegas, please don't crash. Thank you, Vegas. And then we have the kicks, which did mean that I had to make a second piece of UI, because he's no longer at 100 body, he's been kinked twice, each for 1 damage, so it's now at 98. Similarly happens with the return kick, which drops it from 98 to 97. And just I only made a single pain frame for him. I couldn't be bothered to get more. But after that, it's pretty much just more of the same until we hit the final thing with the head exposed. Then we go on to yes, here I actually remembered to censor the deck, so you can't see here the tall knight hanging down. This was fun to make, and by fun I mean utterly tedious, as I couldn't find the RuneScape font anywhere, so I had to recreate it pixel by pixel. Luckily, a lot of the letters get reused, so you only have to make them a certain amount of time, and then you're done. And then I had to recolor them pixel by pixel as well, but after that it was all fine. For the map, it is just the shitty map that I drew, but it is the correct location. And then we have Enki evolving into Enki on anabolic steroids, which is actually just the old Buff Natsuki meme from Doki Doki Literature Club. Moving on. Not much of note for a while until we get to this. The old hitting the keyboard with a hammer. If anyone wasn't able to catch it, the text just says no pianos were harmed in the making of this video, which is actually correct, as you can probably see here. The key's a little offset anyway. It actually got broken in transit years ago. So all I did was actually smack the already broken key with a hammer, which just sends it flying. Which does a nice, I think, quadruple somersault for landing and performing a 180. Like, that's no step afterwards. That's a full, like, that's a 9 out of 10, I think. Judge would be very pleased. Yeah, got very lucky on this run. No, there's usually an elite guard here that you have to sneak past, but apparently for Rag there just wasn't. Found the RuneScape font. Yeah, I found pictures of it, but I couldn't find the an actual font file for it. I found font files for other fonts from RuneScape, but not the specific one that's used in that dialogue box at the time. But all in all, it wasn't actually too bad. It was also one of the last things I did. I didn't originally have the didn't originally have it. It was just this standard footage, but I felt I needed to add something there, so we had the RuneScape punishing bullshitters now 20 with the 3D model of the coin there. And then we get on to the birth of Almir. So we have the false god and the perfect human, which are in fact, if I adjust the contrast, you can kind of tell more that it is in fact the Virgin Mary and Homer Akemi from Madoka Magica. If I set it there, you can actually kind of see her a bit more, the good old Homucifer. Someday we'll get the next part. This is a very nice file that I managed to get off the Fear and Hunger wiki that is the output of that entire section from Mahab, which I can then just pan across to make a nice background. I in fact used the same for Kahara when talking about him. Ah, you're not a fan of Rebellion? It's quite polarizing. I mean, I'm a Homer apologist, so I quite liked it. Then we have the shots of not Jesus. Where's Joseph of Arimathea? Not in the Fear and Hunger canon is what. There was a... Well, actually, we don't actually know if there was a Joseph equivalent. We know there was a Mary equivalent that was his mother, which I personally believe, although it's not been confirmed, that the morning one that we see in Fear and Hunger 2, that's the lady covering her eyes and weeping throughout churches of Almir. I like to think that that's the equivalent of Mary. And then we have this panning shot of... We have the 12 apostles, Giga Chad Almir, and then some sultans and kings and some random esoteric background to stick there that we just pan across. And then we have Almir getting stabbed. Fear and Hunger 2 seems interesting. It is. It's set in like the 1940s, so it's an alternate sort of World War II setting, but it's very different from our kind of World War II. Fear and Hunger 2 is also the better game to start with, I feel. So, well worth giving a try if you haven't. It's also dirt cheap. And we have... Yeah, I had to set this to quite transparent, as it's... I didn't know if it would be too graphic of the crow pecking pieces off of a not quite dead pigeon. But it serves well for the background. As we then go on to Almir's Ascension. I don't remember if I said it exactly, but of what we have the 12 apostles as stated here, and then as stated here we have the 11 apostles rejoiced, which is directly from the Skin Bible of Almir, which suggests that there was a Judas in this world too. Do you plan to cover Fear and Hunger 2? I do, probably once the major update that's coming is out. But we don't know exactly when that's coming out, so I'm going to hold off for now. Also because I need to get the second half of the Pathfinder video done. Then we have Jesus from Fight of Gods, who seemed like a good stand-in for Almir, and allowed me to get some useful footage of Jesus just beating the shit out of people. Fight of Gods is not a good game. It's really not, but Jesus beating people to death with parts of the cross is always funny. I think some people did manage to spot the... actual sulfur god showing up here, along with the symbol of him, which is actually what sort of inspired me to do all of the sketch animations that came later in the video. They all come from starting with this, where I just did the simple threefold animation. I was like, wow, that looks pretty good. I should do some more of that. And then it spiraled out of control. This is a bit I like. Here, when we have the Skin Bible being shut, it is in fact two separate pages being transformed in 3D space. So it rotates and also moves backwards, as you can see from the top and sides. And then we have the two parts of the book underneath, but then they just slide in from underneath. Combined with the sound effect, it makes for a pretty convincing illusion. And we have just another IRL shot as, well, basically filler, as we then get on to Darcy. Yeah, to make Older God seem more like northerly, I just put a blue filter over it, or rather a cyan filter. Just makes it seem a bit colder and less becoming. Then we don't have too much to talk about until we get to Enki. And we have some nice ciphered text in the background. Anyone want to take a guess at what that means? Yes, you're right. It does say gay, gay, homosexual, gay. And then we have Nilvan and totally Lagarde. That's definitely not a picture of Griffith or anything. And another shot from the Golden Age movie, panning up the dungeons where Griffith is held. And then we have Fear and Hunger 2 Lagarde there in the background. Moving on, we have good old Henry VIII's armor with its gigantic codpiece. I've seen it in person at the armories at the tower when I was little. It's very funny to see, because however big it looks in pictures, it doesn't quite stack up to in person of just how huge it is. Speaking of huge, Guts' sword. This is not an elongated shot. This is genuinely how long the sword is drawn in one of the frames in the original 97 adaptation of Berserk. I did have to redraw the handle as his hands around it, but yeah, the sword is actually gigantically long. Okay, this is actually something to talk about. Let's solo out this. This Enki here, I actually made as a live 2D model. So it's fully rigged, so it fully correctly deforms as it moves around. There's actually controls on it, and I can animate it as appropriately. It was fairly simple. It's only a few pieces. So the head was one piece, the body was one piece, and then you have each arm, and then the shoulder coverings. But yeah, he is actually made as a live 2D model there. VTuber Enki. Oh, then this. This took me a while. I've not had anyone actually recognize where it's from specifically, but it is the ending dance from The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, if any of you are old enough to remember that. I even have the music from it that you can Although I did put a hell of a lot of reverb on it to make it sound more distant and echoey. Not surprised you know it, Fox. But yeah. The stand-in for Enki. But yeah, it took me a lot of attempts to actually get the dance right. I don't know why I struggled so much with it. But the other problem was that the skirt was a bit too short, so I kept having to redo takes because it was just showing off my cock. Which is not what we want. But yeah, there does exist deleted footage which does have that. Nothing too much going forward, just standard picture over picture. This was actually fairly easy to do. This was just a warp flow, which is a default Vegas effect that you can use to transition between two things. I then just also put in a fade out of the same image underneath, as otherwise it just fades a bit too quickly. Then we get on to Ragnarvolder Hide, which is just a fairly simple moving of a camera position across a sprite to match where the camera was moving. Similarly here, again, it's quite literally just moving the ocean, moving the frame up and down so it looks like it's moving. But it gives a nice impression of the ocean waves. And then we just have a very wide image to pan across here for showing how desolate Vinland is, by the only place being there able to survive there being a Waffle House. Yeah, it's one of the simpler effects, but it worked very well. Now we get on to Kara. Not too much in his introduction, just a lot of standard shots, quite a few taken from the flash forward sequence. Deliberately went to this place without a torch, so it covered up his pregnant girlfriend a bit more. Ah yeah, there was also some text that flashes by very quickly here, if you didn't catch it in the video. As I called them, like soul gems or something. Ah, the Hexen. This is another one where I had to put in an extra background, because otherwise it's not quite right. But I didn't quite get it. Oh, hey, Pyro. How you doing? Yeah, but otherwise the Hexen just looks a bit bare if you leave the backgrounds on. And yeah, again, it's something you only really know by playing, but the control of the Hexen is just awful. Just feels really very odd to control. Okay then, Fox, another anime test for you. What I have representing the God of the Depths, do you recognise what this is from? Oh, I'll give you some time to respond. Oh, there we go, there's a bigger picture of it. Nice Boat? Entirely correct. It is, in fact, Nice Boat from School Days. What a terrible piece of entertainment that show was. Sylvan. This is where I started getting a bit too involved into the animations of it. In fact, let's pull this back so you can see it in full detail. So this animation I actually did in reverse. So I started at the very end with the traced outlines of some human sprites that I then also drew hair on, which I then frame by frame drew reducing to cells, then joining back together into a single mass. I then just inserted the frames one by one in the opposite order. A lot of the animations I actually did do in reverse, similar to that. But here we have it just being Sylvian creating man. As you probably recognise, I was just using Slanesh instead of Sylvan because, well, it looks more human, it's more usable. These cave painting scenes at the back are actually stolen from Ice Age, of all places. And then, courtesy of NASA, some nice footage. These healing scenes are taken from X-Men. And then we get on to the stock footage silhouette of people making out, which I just blurred a bunch and did some effects on so that you can't really notice that there's a watermark there anymore. And they're blurred behind a window, which I had to colour out so it would actually be transparent. You recognise the cave painting? Yeah, good job. They were in fact from Ice Age. Then this is just a standard Vegas effect called, I think it's called light rays. Yeah, oh no, it was just lens flare elements to just spark up and shine. Again, for this, I actually just rendered out a full piece with all the lens flares that take place on it, how they all pop up and go away, so that I could then do all the zooms and post-processing effects on that to make it blur out and enhance, and then just return to normal. And then this was one of the very last shots I made. I had left a gap here, but the J.J. Abrams label, yeah, but yeah, of the naked harpy lying on the bed, reading from the Book of Sylvan. Kept decent by the wings. Ah, the good old map. So this is my rough map of all the different paths you can take to get all the different endings in Fear and Hunger. And I did also make, although I'm not sure if it actually appears in the video, one of what I roughly think canon is. The counter. It is worrying how many of the videos I have that mention it. But this, in fact, just uses a picture of a Nix tube counter slowed down and then looped to stay on 0. With then just a standard frame, which I then have an inverse mask, so it cuts out these locations, so you then can see the numbers phasing through. Then we don't have too much for a while until we get to this, which is the gif of the girl and Moonless dancing. However, no gif of this with a green screen background existed, so I had to make it by running it through a program to split every single frame of the gif into a individual image, then dropping those all into a paint.net, filling the background to put in the green screen, and then remaking that into a GIF. The gorilla's great, very poor creature. Yeah, she hasn't had a great time, but hey, she got moves. And then we have Nasra. Oh, Nasra, you insane bastard. Yeah, this is a fairly simple effect just by having a frame be there and then not. Tedious process. Yeah, it was kind of. Not as tedious as some other bits, but they'll come later. Then we go on to Pocket Cat. This was a nice, easy bit to animate. To do that sort of movement that's honestly very inspired by the likes of old Gmod animations that I used to watch back in the day, like Despo shit and Kitty 0706. But yeah, the way to do that is just have the frames go from one position to another in a single frame, and then put another keyframe that makes sure that it stays in the same position until you have the next frame where it moves, and then just rotate and get smaller. And then just the vine boom and the testicular torsion. If you don't know, cool. Oh yeah, speaking of the Katzmann Kindergeiger, it took me so many attempts to say that correctly. German is not a language that I'm particularly good at. So, as you may have seen and could probably hear,
The Kindergeiger. The Kindergeiger.
There's a slightly different tone in the two parts of the name, as they are from two different takes. Also, fun fact, this bit of footage here is genuinely the only time I ever used the Demon Child. I had never used it before actually making the video, and haven't used it since making the video. But yeah, I made the Demon Child called $1 and then sold him for a Claymore. This doll was just an image I got off Google. However, I did recolor it, as it was actually a different color to begin with. And then we just have a head pack GIF. Luckily, that just had one color as all white, so I could just use a chroma key on it, and I didn't have to redo that myself. And then we have the good old game killing you, which I actually used as a way to hide a transition. You're actually in a different place between and after. Not that I don't just jump cut at other points, but hey, it works. Yeah, the marriages all have their cock out, so that's why Sylvian is just sitting there to block that. For some of the footage of it moving around, though, I mostly had it facing away, so it's just his butt cheeks, which, that's fine, you can show those. And then this, I did actually have to put in a blur filter on a certain area to cover that up. Then we have just this again. You're probably very familiar with it now, but the mind is now decayed to 71. Now we get on to Grugorov. This is actually two bits of footage of the Big Bang, one of them running in the opposite direction to the other at different points, then just with colour filters over them. Then we have the good old Windows XP background, and then reuse of that animation. Oh yeah, here's the bit where it was actually first used, so you can actually see all of the individual frames that I made for it. In a lot of the image files, I have some sub files specifically for that. Is it a new folder? I guess I didn't. Oh. Thought I put that specifically in a file. Never mind. That's oh no, here it is. I can't. I just wasn't looking very well. So yeah, each of them is just a different image that I drew. all merges together into one. Oh, yeah, tapped out. And then we get on to Grogoroth, which, for some of them, like the people you see here, I initially traced that from a silhouette and then modify it afterwards as it moves. Grogoroth here is actually one I drew completely freehand, which I'm quite proud of. It also meant that I could actually cover up the tits and cock that he usually has hanging out, because everything does in this game. Yeah, but the rabbit and the wolf here are just traced, and then I draw over my tracing deliberately a little bit wrong, so you get the nice threefold rough movement. That it's just more interesting than having a still image, in my opinion. Yeah, and we have just another different shot from IRL, just to be filler shot, and the same closing. Ah, this is something you may have noticed, or hopefully you didn't notice, but there's actually clothing on the person hanging here, which there's not usually in-game. Yeah. But we can't have too much showing up in this. And then we have the map. The map is on finder. It's right at the bottom, I think. Yeah. So this is the map. I think I put this in the description as well, but it is quite large. It is nearly 3K on each side, but it does have the full pathways of everywhere you go, and it slowly gets more and more detailed as I got on and got more used to drawing like this. But it has all the gods as well. It even has the puzzle in the old library in the correct positions. And then, yeah, we've got Grogoroth and Bunga herself down there. We've got Francoise and Dilvin here and Skin Granny. Tormented one in his rings. We even have the Temple of the Old Gods, of the New Gods, sitting in their realm. And the Circle Spear. This bit you may be able to tell is drawn in a bit smaller lines. It was actually bigger, and then I just had to shrink it down. But I'm very happy with how it came out. I completely missed a trick with Moonless. Shouldn't have just been an uwu. It should have been a. There we go. Can't believe I missed that. It's awful. We also have Pocket Gat down here, spotting something in his pocket. Nasramas and the ghosts, the mages, and the salmon snake. And Dark getting her head beaten. And that was an attempt at a yellow lizard mage. Emphasis on attempt. But yeah, I put in a lot of little things in this. I'm very, very happy with how that came out, and it looks good overall. For this here, I actually just have completely changed the color correction of this is actually what it looked like when printed out, and the table, but we just changed that to be a bit darker. This is in fact the same table that the very first intro is, where the sword was on and the coin spinning. Then we can kind of skip forward, as most of this is just footage talking about how the game works. No, I drew it digitally and then printed it out. Oh, this. This took a while. The 3D rotating rabbits in order to censor all the bunny orgy. But we got there eventually. And then we move on to the God of the Death. Bunyoy. Hey, Jamie. Which had some of the simpler sketch animations. Like these, for instance. They're just some outlines with then scribbles over their face. And this wasn't too bad either. Ironically, I made this while watching a movie called The Virus, which is set on a haunted ship. Ah, yes, you may be able to see something down here, which has been moved later, which is the animation for the roaches encroaching to block out the sun. This took so long. This was one of the most tedious. Like, I think I got through like 4 or 8 Top Gear specials in the time to get all of this done. It took forever. So to make it easier, once I'd made it, I actually did run it through an interpolator, which is why you can see these weird little effects here. As I effectively did a frame interpolation on it, so that it doubled the amount of frames that I had, and I only had to draw half as many. But I still did draw a lot. See you, June. Enjoy your dinner. God, so yeah, there was less frames under the original ones that I made, but I wanted more of them, so I made more. Well, it's the way I track time, as I was just watching them at a time, and I realized how many I'd got through by the time it was actually finished. And then we have Maggot Man. He wasn't too bad. That was like half of the Scandinavian special. And then the roaches. All I don't think it was actually that bad. I think it was like 2 Top Gear specials to get all that done. All for like, but it is several hours work for what is what? Ooh, 2.3 seconds of footage. If you wonder why the videos take 4 months to make, it's because of shit like this. And then we get on to the web, which didn't take too long. The drawing the web, I think, took like 3/4 of the Seaman special. And then we fade back in, and not too much to talk about here. We do have the chrome all fading in. Really nice piece of fan art that I shamelessly stole, and then had to also do a bit of a crop out on, but looks so good. I love the artist who did that. Chrome Morley, my beloved. Not much to talk about there. This scene is a fairly simple one of just moving all the objects away. And nothing of note, really. Until we get onto this. Of drinking that. It's not actually original text down here that says you got Baja blasted. And then we go on to Blue Sin. Nothing much here. And then the jump scare. I have all the audio fade out. Make it all quiet. Not much going on, so you have to listen very carefully to hear anything. And then boom, loud air horn and flashing lights. Don't know if it got anyone. I didn't see anyone say that it got them, but it might have. And the rest of the UI fades back in. Mine just decayed to 55 now. Ah, and then we have the losing of arm privileges. Shredding talons from both the legs. This animation is actually the animation that usually goes across, but I changed the angle. Again, it's just frame. It's frame by framed to get the correct pieces of it. Then we have arm 1 loss and arm 2 loss. And the body and the numbers are correct. You lost your arm, you should go find that. You lost your other arm, idiot. And then we go onwards a bit further. Ah, this I put in as an absolute just being a little unfriendly of implying that if you climb down the toilet, that's an escape route. For you who have decided to watch the behind the scenes, I can reveal that is definitely not the case. You actually just end up in a pit, which you can't get out from, and there's nothing to kill you down there, so you just have to exit and reload the game. I did want to see if anyone would fall for it and go during one of their playthroughs. Go, oh, I can just use that to escape rather, so I don't have to get there. And then they end up stuck. A little mean, but yeah, we should all be a little mean from time to time. It's not evil, Jamie. It's just, you know, a little bit silly. A minor amount of tomfoolery. Yeah, the pit that states that it stinks of blood and semen is probably not somewhere you want to go down. Yeah, someone did point out to me in the comments that this isn't strictly accurate. It is on a 30-minute timer, but certain actions have it paused. So I think, like, in combat, it doesn't count. It's only time spent in the overworld. Yeah, exactly. I'm hardly more mean than the game already is. Ah, we have the return of the Enki model. Who is beating Nasra with his foot. Implied to be his foot, as it's talking about Dash and yeah. As you can see, the animation I used for shredding talons actually uses these sprites from the leg sweep there. A bit of succubus footage I gathered. And then we are on to miasma. Of the sword that makes you kill things. It's probably the best shot of the armor in there, of the actual breastplate, chainmail, and the skirter plates. Onto Mahab. So the fade out effect is actually using a glow effect to change color, and then just a wave effect to modulate the amount of waves and the wave amplitude to get the wishy-washy. Yeah, just some standard glow effects to make them shine, some standard pans. This is a, I think, Orthodox cathedral in Russia. It did have a bunch of like crosses and crescent stars on top of them, so I had to remove all of those first. Just rub those out, and then I could use it to represent Mahab. Now we get into one of the sections that took the longest. As you may recognise, this is actually just a ghoul that I traced over. But then we drew the obelisk emerging from his forehead. And the candle getting closer. This is one I'm not too happy about. The threefold repetition doesn't really work for the fire. I needed more frames of animation there to have made the fire look good. However, the fire snuffing, though it took ages because there's a lot of frames of animation in that, I am very happy with how that came out. And then we have just the rotating Ascension. I probably could have just done this as a single image and then just rotated it. That would have been the smarter thing to do. Instead, I drew individual frames for them. I didn't need to do that. Why did I do that? Anywho, on to Mahab. Not a huge amount of things in here. Although this is a shot I'm quite proud of. A bit fading between the two. I did record this twice. Once in the past, once in the present, and then would just cut between them. Well, then faded in and out between them. But I managed to get it pretty spot on. So I think it looks quite seamless. You'd never know that they were... It wasn't just like fading in a... light. Anyway, self-satisfaction apart. We do get to bring up Narissa's Fun Time Cock and Ball Torture Mansion, which I think I referenced in the Pathfinder video. No, I definitely referenced it in the Pathfinder video, because this asset is from the Pathfinder video. And then we have the map again. And on to killing the new gods. These are just different frames. However, I did sneak in right at the end here. Only for a couple of frames. The girl, representing the god of fear and hunger as the most powerful of on the chart. Gotta say thank you to Termina for actually giving the Endless Soul an image. And then not many edits for a while. Like, those sections took so long. When I finally got to this again, it was nice to just be plain sailing for a bit. Just straight footage going in, couple things over and under. And now we get into the circles. Oh, circles. Not a huge much to say here, as most of what I said was in the video, but yeah, this may be a certain website of disrepute that is... sorry, yawning. A certain website that provides furry content of a type. And then moving on to just Fez and Cabana of the Iron Fortress. Really, I just wanted an excuse to use that GIF. And then we get derailed into Queen Morales. Good old murder circle. And then we have a ancient world map that I managed to find to represent vanilla, which I don't know why it's so laggy in the editor, but it somewhat is. Yeah. Then again, I'm not sure they're too bothered about it, given that they currently sell body pillows of Queen Rylus. So I think they're also in on being horny for the circles. Not too much to talk about here. This bit was a pain in the ass to censor, as yeah, when moving around you have to move the sensor and make it not fail to cover the correct areas, but I think I did actually manage it. And then we get on to the White Angel. Nothing really to talk about. Any edits here? This is just a fairly standard rotation with then a red thing going on top of it. Nothing of note. Yeah, some censoring had to be done on the third eye there. But other than that, again, a fairly simple bit of editing. And then on to the final fight with Francois. And into the void. Again, more censoring that I had to do, as Lagarde also has his cock out, because they all do. Someone did notice it in the comments, but it is correct that yes, there's two different versions of the C ending. One where you kneel and go out, and the other one where you fight him. So you only actually see him in this form if you try and fight him. Then moving on, we get to the other endings. Oh yeah, at this point I changed this so it had a little wobbly animation as well. But there's not much until we get to here. Because this, I couldn't get any good output from the game. So this I recreated myself largely. I found one which had a lot of it correctly there, but it was still missing some of the pieces and had overlays over it. So I had to make it myself in separate pieces. So we have the God of the Depth themselves, which did also require redrawing this section here, because as you can see here, it's normally covered by the boards. So I had to redraw what was covered behind it so that I could then have it move around and there wasn't just a gap. But in the end, it turned out quite well, apart from this giant black space here, which I completely missed. And now can't unsee, but oh well. Now we get on to the thicket. And the mumblers. I did forget to censor one of the mumblers. That was the other thing. But I think it's okay. I think I can get away without censoring the mumblers, because they don't look like a human cock. They look quite a lot like a horse cock, but apparently that's more acceptable. And then we have the final descent. This, again, is a warp effect. So I just got the mouth shut and the mouth open, and then used Vegas to automatically perform the warp to make it close, which honestly worked really well. Looked very smooth. Gauntlet doesn't have too much description of how the moonless guards are made, with the double thumbs up Slanesh. Chrome Waller, that's just an animated X from earlier. And then Grogoroth. I didn't have enough good B-roll of actually showing Grogoroth, and he doesn't move, he just stands there. So I used this again and put some other effects on him. This is just a brightness effect and light rays to imply his power a bit better. And then now we get on to the bit that took the longest of the entire video. But I knew that was going to happen. I knew that was going to happen, and I wanted that to be the case because it's the most important part of the video, and that being Funga's Ascension itself. So yeah, the A doesn't usually look like that. I designed that A myself to represent the A in the final ending. Incidentally, if you're struggling with the gauntlet, get phase step. It allows you to trivialize a bunch of it. This is actually an interesting bit as well. If you look very carefully, you can see right here there's a line, because I actually got two different shots, one from each side, and then overlaid them together to get the full 16:9 shot of the Church of Rondon. Yeah, didn't get it quite right, but I got it damn close enough that you don't really notice it. Incidentally, the player is in fact hiding behind here or here at the time. And then this is where it gets long. As this is a custom asset I made out of Fear and Hunger assets, piecing together various pieces from the files of the game in order to create the other look of the corpse pile. With then Kahara and the girl moving away and going to heart. Then some nice simple threefold animations that I did myself. Neither any of those were too particularly difficult. This also was a fairly simple one. It's a threefold, as you can probably tell. But I just added a bit more onto the previous 3 files ago. Did you go into RPG Maker for that? Kind of. I used a specific program that's able to rip all the files from RPG Maker games. So I decompiled the game essentially, and then used the assets that were in there to combine together to make that. I can show you, in fact. Videos, tools, RPG Maker description, Fear and Hunger 1, images. Tile sets. So for like corpse pile, they're made out of like bits of these combined together in order to, and the background is made from tiled bits of this, which came together to then make. Come on, Vegas. But then make this out of those assets. So you can kind of see where bits of it was, and then I've combined more bits on top of it. Various piles and everything like that. How big is the Fear and Hunger assets, out of curiosity? Not much. The game's not big. The full description of Fear and Hunger 1 is, yeah, 672 meg. So small. Then we just have some blurs and some moves around, and then the forward, which was onto a green screen of dropping the knife. That knife was the first one I ever made. It was, it's wrapped in shoelace, it's made of wood, with metal, like aluminium flashing around a wooden block for the guard, and the blade is from a set of garden shears. But yeah, then we get on to the more final animations. So we have the hands, which I decided to leave sort of showing behind the after images. I felt that added to it for her. What I meant, I needed less frames. But yeah, I'm quite happy with how those turned out. I clawed the hands a bit more to make them seem a bit more menacing. And then these took a while. The hand mitosis. But I'm very pleased with it. Took a long time, but yeah. The timescale for this was most of the Netflix docudrama on the bar pool disaster. Then we just have some simple cropping effects to make arms go in and out. Before a warp effect. And some changing crops to make that grow. And then more manual animations, which I don't know if it actually got picked up, but it breaks off the silhouette at the back as well, and they also can see them falling at the back. It's not just the hands in front. And then we have the glitch effect, which I can't actually show you how it's done, because doing it breaks Vegas, because it's done via a displacement map. I did later discover a way to do it without breaking it, but at the time it did cause some issues. It would apply this to everything below it, so I had to then delete it once I'd rendered out a section. But it works nicely to mask the change. I also decided to make them significantly bigger than it is in game normally, just to make her a bit more threatening. And we have these backgrounds again that you're probably used to at this point. Threefold repetition for the inside of the cave, and then these just fairly simple moving around of images. Threefold repetitions for the outer layers. And then we start to reach the end. This was a trick I learnt in making the Pathfinder video, which is just to put a different text of different colours of the same thing, and it makes a quite nice effect. We have the final shifting, again using a similar glitch effect. That's done using displacement maps. This was an effect I was quite happy with, which was super simple. It was just overlaying a semi-transparent one and making it a bit bigger and then go smaller. This is actually the self-mutilation effect from here, just masked to only be this, and then overlaid over the JPEG I have at the bottom. Which is why it's a little bit transparent, so it melts together nicely. And then we have the shock images, which are just like lots of medieval images of death and hell and suffering, and a lot of medical diagrams. I did, in the process of finding all these, find a nice big archive of Victorian surgical procedures. I don't know what was wrong with them, but they had a hell of a lot of them that involved, no matter what the operation was, going through the urethra. Some of them, like kidney stones, sure, fair enough, but some of them, it's like, you're not even operating on that area. Why do you feel the need to stick a rod down there? I think the surgeon who made it might have just had a fish. During that whole thing, and from hearing that discussion that I just had, we also have the fading of Kahara into the withered state. And then just a move to the side, and then move to the other side to either sort of collapse to the knees. Final footage from the actual game. And then death. Then we have this that was fairly simple, although I have to give big thanks to Erasmus for who is the one who drew the Valk encounter art. She also voices the God of Fear and Hunger here. She gave me like 3 different recordings of each of it in a different voice. I ended up using 2 of them combined. Using the child, one was a fairly neutral one was a more childlike one. Combining them together, stuck a bunch of reverb, split them up, and aligned them with the text.
The thought must have crossed your mind at some point.
I think it turned out.
Thought that you delved too deep.
I think it turned out pretty well, especially once the music's put in there with the chiming sort of child's music box that's nice and haunting. Incidentally, a lot of people did notice that for this section, I used a song from Warframe called This Is What You Are, which is a very good piece. I do like it. Then we have one of the final animations here, which is the drawing of the rune of Fear and Hunger, then becoming the A in Fear and Hunger. I was very happy with that. And then we have the final descriptions of what's going on. This is something that I didn't really get to touch on, but this is a alternate version of the Cave Dwellers village that you can get very rarely, where the Moonless Guards have come out from the catacombs, from the Gauntlet, and have killed all the villagers already by the time you get there. I think it might only happen on hard mode. It happened on quite a few of my Dark S runs. But yeah, I didn't really have any way to bring it up. Ah, I did use it. Yeah, that's my rough idea of what the canon is like. So we've got Kara, the girl to the A ending, Nazra doing the B, C ending, C1 ending isn't real, C2 ending happens after Das goes to Mahab, gets the resurrection, resurrects Lagarde, brings him to Ascension. Ragnarvalda killed Lagarde, and then Enki goes and befriends the alchemist and goes to Mahab, goes to do Ascension, and then doesn't. Again, most of that's just describing the S endings. Nothing really much to talk about there. Yeah, those are just out of picture. This is, I think, the only time that changing your armor changes your clothes. As you can just about see here, that as you... Oh, well, if I move the clip up and make it a bit longer, you probably... When you equip it, it actually changes your appearance. Which I don't think ever happens at any other point in it. Maybe from a holdover when all the armors did actually have a effect. You can get skins too. Oh, that's fair. I've never actually used the skins. I suppose it would make sense that those would change as well. Also, this is bizarre. I don't know how to cause this glitch, but I got like 4 drops from the same bookcase. Only seems to happen on bookcases and only when you use a lucky coin, but very useful when it does happen. Incidentally, this is actually not, despite being meant to be Enki's S ending, is actually just the standard D ending. I didn't actually do an S run for the video. Yeah, again, we have some just simple background replacements to make it match. And you can just select the right side. Oh, right. Yeah, maybe it's a tile thing. It would make sense if it was. Yeah, we don't actually have many edits in Rag's bit, or other than the fact that I did accidentally kill the butterfly. Well, accidentally, deliberately. Kill the butterfly and then had to go all the way back to Mahab, to the Grand Library, and use a bunch of lucky coins to get a blank scroll so that I could get the soul and actually complete the S ending for him. And not much to go yet, just Dungeon Knights, but there's not really much that needs talking about here. Yeah, incidentally, yes, the script really is that long. It's a big script at 11,000 words. Yeah, not much to talk about there. Oh yeah, so this bit, why it's a bit of a non sequitur, is because there was genuinely a much longer joke. There was once a much longer joke here of like playing Crow's sound effects and then having me translate what it means in very like broken English. In fact, I can get it up in the script. Probably be about like here. Yeah, here it is. So, where is it? Exhaust is playing happy. Yeah, so this was what the original plan was, which was it'd be coring, and then I'd say what like the lines were. So like loud coring, and then be like, you are me perceiving affirmative. I put like the verb subject order all in a strange order, but it was consistent. Oh, me see you, shining brilliant. But when actually it came to do the editing, it just wasn't funny. It was more just annoying. Went on far too long, and the joke just didn't land. So instead, I just made fun of the fact that the joke didn't land, and fast-forwarded. Then, talking of pinecone pigs, Dr. Faust, we have the one I made right here. Can't see it horrendously well because, again, the high dynamic range of my phone camera is not great. But we have it here again, which is a weird halfway between stop motion and video, because it is video, but I'd move it and then film for a bit, move it, then film for a bit. So I could have the candles keep moving as if it will just rapidly dart between places. You'll take 10. You know what's funny? If you ask Almir via a blank scroll to give you pine cones, he will give you 10 of them. But yeah, this was just a giant pine cone I got off eBay for like £8. And then we get on to the date with Crow. Crow, my beloved. There is actually a full video that I made for this, which... where's YouTube Studio? not many people have actually found. I put it in the little eye thing that goes in the top right. But yeah, as of now, only 9 people have noticed that that video is real. It's actually 8, because one of them was me, just testing that the video was displaying properly. But yeah, that was made all the way back in August, back when I started the project. I made this fairly near the beginning. And then, yeah, 8 people since have noticed there. It's currently unlisted, so you have to use it from the link in that video. Yeah, something for you to hunt down. But yeah, it's just a fairly simple video. It doesn't really grope on there. It's 2 frames of animation with looping. Yeah, that's the same joke again. So that's just removed, and then we have this at the end, which I have fooled you. That there is no. Let's just move so there's no cocking frame. There we go. Yeah, it's actually Legard and Ragnarvolder here. There we go. Yeah, the Crow and myself dancing are sprites that I've just added in. Oh yeah, there we go. Okay, so I did get 2 shots out of that. Incidentally, the B-roll footage here is Marco repeatedly beating the dead body of the journalist. This is just in what's canon. There's nothing really to talk about there. And we are almost done here. Just getting to the end of the game, because this is post-spoilers now. In the video, talking about recommending Termina. And then... Oh look, it appears our viewer has died and run out of mind at the end there. Oh no, what a shame. Anyway, that's it for the video, really. Yeah, we have Erasmus is the one who made the Valk encounter art and voiced the Fear of Hunger. She did a really good job. I really have to thank her because she didn't even charge me for it. Then you have the map, the coin, and Pathfinder. Yeah, I had originally planned to have this video out for Halloween. That didn't happen, but Scope Creep got the better of me. But I'm still very proud of how it came out. And then we have the final little post-credits scene.
Ooh, edged weapon. Someone could lose a limb. Yeah.
Which was the final little ending gag. But yeah, I'm really happy with how it turned out. There's only a couple things that I'm not, and that's one, that I forgot to censor a cock at one point. That's on me, that's my bad. And the audio just came out very quiet. Like when I'm watching it back on a phone, it's fine, you can just hit the increased volume and it just goes up fine. But on my PC, I'd have to actually turn up my physical PC volume for it to be at a reasonable volume. So I'm not quite sure what caused that, and it's something I'll need to look into in the future. But for now, that's mostly that. Thank you very much for tuning in. Is there any real questions anyone had? Additionally, the whole project file is 73.6 gigabytes for everything that went into this. It was a big one, and I'm looking forward to moving it off my SSD and into long-term storage so that I can have some space back on my SSD. A couple of minutes for any questions, and then I will call that a night. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I hope to have more in the future. Additionally, as you watched for this far, you get to be the first to know, I am planning a few new things for the channel. Firstly, I want to start streaming more, so it will probably be every month. I'm thinking the first weekend of each month. So the Sunday, same time as this, seems to be when most people are able to watch. So first Sunday each month. Won't always be behind the scenes like this. It will be various other things. There's a few games that I want to do that I won't necessarily make a video on, but I still want to like show off and have some fun with. So yeah, I will hopefully be doing that in the future. Also, thank you to everyone who's subscribed. It's been amazing how many people have turned up recently. I am thinking of starting a Patreon that will be entirely optional. I probably won't be gating anything behind it, just for if people want it. Just because I have had a few people ask about that. But yeah, that will be entirely optional. I'm not going to lock videos behind it or anything like that. But it will just be there as an option. Nice to see break 3K. Yeah, it has been really nice, and I'm honestly blitzing the way to 4K at the moment because it's already past 3.5K now. Like, if I check my analytics, I've had over 1,000 subscribers in the past month, which is more than I got in like my first 3 to 4 years, I think. And it's pretty much all been off the back of the Fear and Hunger video. Recommend Subscribe Star. Yeah, I've been thinking of that as well. Yeah, I was probably going to do both Subscribe Star and Patreon. It's always best to hedge your bets and have them both available, and for what people prefer, maybe set one to be monthly and one to be per video, so whatever people want to do based on that they can do. Yeah, people should have options, and like I said, it's nothing required. I know people have had a lot of complaints with Subscribe Star of it not taking subscriptions properly, or it takes subscriptions from people who've, after they've stopped, they've cancelled their things with things, and just the system not working great for a lot of people. But I still plan to use both. There's a lot of problems that Patreon has as well. Any other questions before I sign off, seeing as it's 8 o'clock now? No, then thank you all very much for watching. Next video will be coming out hopefully sometime Q1 this year, so I'm hoping sort of March. That's my aim. Don't know if I'll be able to keep to that, but that's my aim. Anyway, apart from that, until next time.